Welcome to this week's BTO talk on generative AI. It's my great pleasure to have you here. My name is Michael Alf, calling from Lisbon, founding partner of Beyond the Obvious, and I'm here with Rob. Over to you.
Hi, Michael. Yes, Rob Thurner here, also founding partner with Beyond the Obvious, working with Cambridge Judge Business School and delivering workshops on GenAI and digital transformation to clients in Europe and the Middle East. So, Michael, we usually kick these sessions off with a look at what the big tech news is. I think you've got something for us today to share.
Absolutely, there's always something, and today we keep it short. The overall session, we're very busy, and we want to focus really on something, which will help you to embrace kind of the opportunities on the news side. Models is always a big topic, and NVIDIA just came out with a new version of a model which actually is better than ChatGPT 4.0 and Claude Sonnet, so the Anthropic 3.5. In the comparisons, really interesting. Again, the next level, they use things like reinforcement learning by humans and other things. So it's not only the models now, it's also how to improve these models, which is really interesting. So the race around the leadership of the models is continuing. Is that relevant for you? To some extent it is. So just to kind of be on the forefront of it. On the other hand, it's really even more important to get into this race and just kind of pick one, because they are so good now. You can do so many things. So you don't have to evaluate which one is the best, because on that level, it doesn't make a huge difference at the moment for many applications. It will at some stage, but then you have the experts. Initially, it doesn't matter. So that's kind of the news. Rob, over to you.
Interesting. So we talk about how GenAI is useful, on three levels: personal productivity. What can I be doing? How can I be using tools to make my job, my life quicker and easier? And this is yet another tool that's making that easier and easier for us. We talk about organizationally, how can we be improving the way that we work together, productivity within the business? And then we look at this other layer of innovation. How can we be coming up with better and smarter ideas for products and services? We're seeing in the work we're doing more and more of an understanding of GenAI playing a key role, often as a start point in moving our business challenge into something we can tackle quickly and easily. And Michael, I want to look at some recent examples. I think we've all had with Marcus, who's not with us today, working with clients and helping them with the practical application of GenAI. And you've had an example, I know, this week. Do you want to give us an overview? What was that, and what were the key learnings, and how are they using GenAI?
Absolutely, Rob. And we're really excited. So we have presented last time our brand new business simulation, Maverick, which is really kind of around winning the race to GenAI. And let's see here, this is kind of how it looks on the when you play the scenario, and we see now first experiences. So you go through that. I just click a few slides. You get the welcome, which is really the scenario to explore the roadmap around generative AI for a company, which spinned out basically a company to explore that and assess that, because this is where most of the companies are at the moment. Then there's an assignment by the CEO, Alex Anwar here, who really gives kind of the task to the participants to explore these along different scenarios. We have a few KPIs. We're not talking too much about that one. And here you see kind of the spin roadmap, which is a total of 13 scenarios, so quite extensive. And what we see is it really helps participants to get a broad perspective and understanding of generative AI and the possibilities, because we cover here not only the foundations, the ethics, the technology, but also a lot of functions from marketing, product, PMO, HR, so all the areas, and including change management as well. And this really showed this week. Let me just kind of put us back into the frame. There we go. And this week, I ran a workshop which included this simulation for a CEO and his leadership team. And again, they start from, well, we have some ideas. We are using that here and there, ChatGPT, that is. But we don't really have an understanding. And it's really relevant. Is it only marketing? And they left kind of this session very differently, with a broad understanding about the massive implication across all functions. And they used the simulation to go through these scenarios and to discuss amongst each other, the leaders of the organization, discussing the relevance, discussing the different options, the pros and cons of each option, because each option has implications on each of the KPIs. So it's not just like, well, this one is the best because that's kind of across the board. Maybe option one, KPI 1 goes up, KPI 2 goes down, the other way around for option number 2. And that makes it interesting, this ambiguity which you have, which is driven by kind of the possibilities. And it was a really interesting exercise embedded in overview, GenAI and applications and prompting, and then specific applications for this company, where they now have a list of scenarios where they see how that it can be used, and now they can go the next step. So that's kind of the scenario from my side.
Yeah, super interesting. So we see a crossover there, explaining the principles, getting a good degree of competition between the different players. It sounds like you had a small exec team, and I imagine a high degree of competition between the chief exec and the rest of the team. But then the really important bit is, how do we unpack that? How do we take those learnings into something practical as a result?
Absolutely. Yeah. So that was a really interesting kind of, so really the CEO really wanted to win, which is quite funny. So that's that's a broader, so you have all functions, but I think, Rob, you have a great example of a workshop in a function, and that works too.
Yeah, so this is an interesting one. It's coming up in a couple of weeks. Really looking forward to it. It's a client I've known for some time, big conglomerate based in the Middle East, many different business areas that they're engaged in, and they're already doing bits and pieces with AI, but they need to have a way of getting everyone together and a base level of understanding. So what they've decided to do, interesting, they've decided to look at one particular business function that relates to all organizations within the group. It's a centralized function, HR. They've seen that there are potentially some big savings and cost savings using GenAI to automate processes. Who do we select upstream, and how do we create a faster way of getting the right candidates on the shortlist? How do we bring them in for interviews and automate the diary management piece? How do we then onboard them and upskill them? So they've got some pretty ambitious targets they've set. And so the goal there is to set up a workshop where we introduce the concepts, the meat in the sandwich, if you like. The shared learning comes from the simulation, and there I think we'll get a real focus on that HR scenario Michael mentioned earlier, and out from that will come some learnings that we can then turn into the practical elements and the rest of the workshop. So kind of similar to what you've had, but with a bigger group. And the idea is that this will be the start point. Once they build confidence in using GenAI for their HR processes, they can then spin it out to other parts of the business and other functions, but also other operating units. So super interesting. And I think this kind of touches on the versatility of this simulation and the way that can be adapted and built into a broader learning experience, but a very practical one. So Michael, we talk about practical all the time. We're not here to teach you how to do it. There's no easy answer to that. And there's a ton of YouTube videos to watch. So what are your reflections on how organizations wanting to build alignment and get a common understanding? Are there any particular things they should and shouldn't do based on the growing number of clients that you're now engaged with in this area?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think kind of what we're seeing a little bit, and you reflected on that with the HR example, that most are expecting immediate applicability to their role and function. And it's almost like this is an area where you have to lay the foundation because it's still so new. people need to understand what it is, what it's not. And there is some work, and the nice thing about kind of the simulation is they do that in a very interactive way, where they discuss amongst each other. And by doing that, for example, by discussing a marketing scenario, then they're able to convey that into kind of HR if they are HR. Yeah, so it's like it's a step, it's a broader step. And one of the things we see, everyone tries to specialize, where you need some general management as well, and some looking outside, for example, outside of the industry, and this is what is, I think, what is really important, to get this, plus supported by really hands-on experience, doing this stuff. And why is that so important? Because it impacts every single individual up to the CEO, by the way. So also the CEO is going to use generative AI, and he or she needs to understand how it works. And so you have to kind of this practical application, which we incorporate into the workshops. And then you have that process level where then you decide, okay, now I understand roughly where it's heading to. Now we can tackle those areas. So I think that's the critical approach, being open. And reach out to us, if you want to discuss. Any builds on that, Rob?
Yeah, no, I think this is one of the interesting experiences we've had so far, and the feedback we've had from the simulation, which has been overwhelmingly positive, is it's the real value comes in the differences of opinion on which of these options is the optimum one. And it really depends where you're coming from. If you're from a legal and compliance background, or if you're from a marketing or from an operations or product perspective, you will have different views. And what this underpins is the overwhelming sense in any digital transformation that we need to bring different stakeholders with different skill sets coming together to come up with the best outcomes. It's no longer the case that we can be sitting in silos and pockets. So bringing those differences of opinion, which play out very interestingly in their responses to some of these scenarios, is an area where we get some really valuable learnings. And that itself, arguably, the conversation is more important than the result itself. So that's been super interesting. So on your screen, we see here a link to the landing page. If you want to find more about the simulation, we're out there. We're getting more interest in this, and we're running more of these simulations every week. So great to have you on board. Please do ask if you've got any questions. In the meantime, it's a thank you for your time from me this week. We're short, and Marcus will be back with us next week. Any closing comments, Michael, before we go?
Nothing to add. Thank you very much, Rob. I think a good discussion. I hope that was valuable for you. And I have an echo now. And we close. That,
I can't hear the echo, but thanks for your time, guys.
Thank you.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye for now.